YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
Tonight, the White House is showcasing a different kind of diplomatic reception, with First Lady Melania Trump welcoming an ambassador of the future.
Very soon, artificial intelligence will move from our mobile phones to humanoids that deliver utility.
The First Lady standing side by side a humanoid robot, known as Figure 3, at an international summit focused on artificial intelligence's growing role in educating children.
I am grateful to be part of this historic movement to empower children with technology and education.
The American-made robot apparently completely autonomous, according to the company, meaning there are no humans controlling it. And while the technology is not perfect, one thing's clear: the robots are here to stay.
Imagine a humanoid educator named Plato. Access to the classical studies is now instantaneous. Literature, science, art, philosophy, mathematics, and history. Humanity's entire corpus of information is available in the comfort of your home. Plato will provide a personalized experience, adaptive to the needs of each student. Plato is always patient and always available. Predictably, our children will develop deep critical thinking and independent reasoning abilities. The AI-powered Plato will boost analytic skills and problem solving and adapt in real time to a student's pace, prior knowledge, and even emotional state. The byproduct, a more well-rounded lifestyle for our children, freeing up time for being with friends, playing sports, and developing interests beyond school. A more complete person.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Gay.I at the White House. AI at the White House. The continuing normalization of these AI robots, whether they're Tesla bots or brought to you from some other brand, which of course we all know these brands are fronts for the government. They sell you the technology that they are going to enslave you with because they know if they brought it to your front door, the people would rise against the government. So of course it's the illusion that you are actually purchasing these things, allowing these things through mind control methods to be in your life. That's how we've gotten to this point with cell phones. Nobody would ever have allowed cell phones in their lives in the late 90s if the government came to your front door and said, hey, we want you to bring these portable phones around with you. Oh, and yeah, they have GPS tracking inside of it so we can follow you all the time. And oh, by the way, we're going to pass the Patriot Act so we could listen to you 24/7 and, of course, treat you as the real terrorist because you're the real threat to the United States of America if you're critically thinking and you're going against what we're trying to force on you without really forcing it. So Melania Trump comes out with the AI robot that they're trying to normalize. And of course, talks to you about what? Well, how this is the future of education, how these are going to raise your kids and teach your kids and eventually, of course, be brought into your home. And the conditioning continues for conservative Christians through this obviously compromised Republican Party because both parties are compromised working together. If you haven't figured that out yet, the oldest motto in the book is divide and conquer. So pay attention to what these guys are doing because while they're telling you to hate one another, They're also chumming it up with one another constantly, side by side. We've seen Obama with Trump, and then, of course, when the camera's on them alone, they criticize one another. Same thing with Biden and Trump. Same thing with guys like Chuck Schumer and Trump. They all pretend that they're enemies with one another, that they're going to impeach one another. This is all for you. That's all part of the show. Political Theater 101. So they want you to be educated by these robots. They want these things in your life eventually. They want you to even mate with these things, as I'll get into momentarily. But this is conditioning for conservatives, and the conservatives are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. We've already seen it with the electric vehicles, right? People like me have been warning Christians about the electric vehicle, but warning everybody. It doesn't matter what your belief system is about the electric vehicle, what it's really here for, how that electric vehicle is going to tie into smart cities, how it's going to tie into controlling your movements with the carbon footprint. I've warned and warned and warned. The videos are all available on the website at callfornuprising.com. But this is all part of that plan, normalizing it, getting you to accept it. And I'll show you exactly how they've done this, right? So we're seeing little things. We've seen Kim Kardashian, of course. I covered this a year ago where she was grinding, making the Tesla robot sexualized with her. She was rubbing up against. It's all part of the transhumanism, mind control, of course. She also aligns with the Conservative Party, believe it or not. She's an Armenian witch who pretends to be Christian, as the whole family does, even though they flat out tell you that they're witches, even, of course, putting it on their birthday cakes like one of the Kardashians did a few years ago. Again, they get away with this stuff. They get away with this stuff because people are not critically thinking. They tell you you're on one team, then they could switch to the other team. It doesn't matter. And because you're on one team, whatever they say, you're being manipulated whether you realize it or not. So we had Kim Kardashian grinding on a Tesla bot. We have the White House now bringing out the Tesla bot. Of course, the mind control has been there to accept this technology, to accept robots. Robots are good and loving and caring. Technology is loving and caring because technology doesn't see skin color. Technology doesn't judge. People are hurtful and hateful. That's all you hear every single day from the propaganda media. But what's your reliant friend, right? What do they want you to turn to? Your tech. They've already been conditioning kids with movies like WALL-E, right? Movies like that to get kids into their technology. Oh, it's loving and it's cute, it's adorable. Adults like us, right? How long have we been indoctrinated? There's thousands of movies I could list, but we'll name a few right here, right? Like Bicentennial Man, right? Where they even give you the all-seeing eye right on the cover. This is the other version of the poster for Bicentennial Man, by the way, with Robin Williams, where you can see the 666 very clear as day, actually. And of course, Robin Williams compromised, as I covered during his supposed suicide. You could see all these images of him doing the all-seeing eye symbolism. One of the most obvious Freemasons that there's been in Hollywood, never hid his symbolism, hidden hand, the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, the 666, constantly doing it. Other movies like Artificial Intelligence, of course, by Steven Spielberg, who's handed these scripts. We're told he's a creative director. He comes up with these great ideas. All of his films revolve around predictive programming, from E.T. to pushing things like Schindler's List on everybody out there for brainwashing purposes, of course, as we all know, which you're not allowed to discuss, of course, as we get closer to the Noahide laws. Other movies include movies like Artificial Intelligence. I mentioned Schindler's List, Minority Report, a good movie to watch if you want to see what the future looks like with biometrics. Obviously, Spielberg, James Cameron. These guys are handed scripts like Terminator. They're told to make these movies. It's all part of mind control. It's part of predictive programming. It programs you into accepting these things, and that's why we've seen all these movies about artificial intelligence and accepting it. But we've also seen the flip side, right, where there's plenty of movies where we see the horror side of artificial intelligence, right? We've even seen it going all the way back to movies like Metropolis, where you could see transhumanism and the robot. You can even see the pentagram behind the robot. This has been going on for a long time. They've had this technology for a long time, and now people are gullible enough, they're dumb enough to believe all the propaganda that gets fed to them, and they're ready to accept this into their lives. Metropolis, of course, goes back to 1927, and they've had this technology before then. Many people believe they've had this technology going back to ancient Egypt. But if you want to even look at movies like Metropolis, it just shows you how long they've had this. And of course, the theme of that film is transhumanism, as well as talking about the recreation of the Tower of Babel, which we're seeing right now and we're going to see through AI. And from there, the other things we've seen to normalize this with AI is You know, you got websites like CNN, which of course is nothing but fake propaganda. But remember, they got to give it to the left and the right because everybody's going to accept this because everybody's going to hate one another. As the Bible says, everyone's going to grow cold. And this is going to be what everybody turns to, right? Nobody's compatible with anyone anymore. Men and women are afraid to interact with each other anymore. They've made it so you can't even hit on a girl anymore. It's sexual harassment. It's all been deliberately done for this. Stuff like what it's like to go on a date with an AI companion in New York City. That's stuff that's airing on CNN regularly. And then you go through the stories like the New Yorker, how stories about human-robot relationships push our buttons. Will robotic romantic partners be more common than real ones by 2050, right? Programming. How AI companies are redefining human relationships in the digital age in real life. Meet the people dating AI. Why people are confessing their love for AI chatbots, right? Everybody's going insane. Of course, new Japanese dating app allows you to marry an AI bot and already has 5,000 users. People turning to their tech, they trust in their tech, and then eventually it leads to stuff like this. World's first artificial womb facility. It is a creepy glimpse of pregnancy in the future, and even everybody's favorite fake conservative, Elon Musk, the pregnancy robots that he's rolling out, in addition, of course, to the Neuralink. But pregnancy robots is the bold new plan for Elon Musk, and nobody is paying attention. They just think this stuff is cool and neat because they love their tech. So they see Melania Trump come out, and she starts, as you saw in that clip, talking about these robots teaching your children. Now, you would say that's absolutely insane 20 years ago. But in today's world, people are saying, interesting, because they've been conditioned into it. How have they been conditioned into it? Well, via sabotage, right? Let's start with the obvious, the Artificial Intelligence Governance, AI Governance Alliance. Again, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, this is the plan. It's governance run through artificial intelligence. It's a complete control system. You don't know the man behind the curtain, but you'll be willing to accept this when you find out that all your politicians are pedophiles who are all on Epstein Island. You'll be accepting of this when you realize you've had enough of Donald Trump trying to remain in power or incompetent people like Joe Biden going into power. You'd say, you know what? I'd rather it run through regulations and rules through artificial intelligence. And of course, they'll continue to tweak it over time. Once people allow and accept this technology to control their lives and govern them, it'll start turning into, well, you can't say this, you can't say that. You say this, you're going to go to jail longer than somebody who commits rape. Oh, you thought that? Well, you're going to go to prison for thinking that. Oh, you said this about artificial intelligence? Well, you're not going to be able to get on a plane. And then when the government decides the carbon footprint's going to be installed for quote unquote climate change, well, then you won't be allowed to travel. You'll have to ration your water, your electricity. Then you'll really get upset. And of course, it'll be too late because you'll have AI governance locked in. And anything that you say online or even think at that point will be used against you and not in the court of law. So this is what we've seen from the World Economic Forum, okay? They have been talking about shaping the future of learning through artificial intelligence in education, right? Shaping the future of learning, the role of AI in education. They have articles out there. They have files out there. They have meetings on it. This is one of the big topics at the World Economic Forum. It's AI governance, it's AI education, right? United Nations, global education must integrate AI centered on humanity, right? See this pattern here? This is what the World Economic Forum and the UN is pushing. And this is what Melania Trump and Donald Trump are bringing out. But when they're doing this and people are suddenly getting confused, going, whoa, wait a minute, I don't know if I like this with a robot there. They're getting distracted by crazy stories about Democrats, right? Drag queens and all this other stuff because they're being programmed into accepting this. I'll show you in a second here. More, AI is transforming education by allowing us to be more human. And of course, this conditioning began with COVID. Okay, because the future of education is going to be through AI and children being indoctrinated with artificial intelligence and robotics. And it's going to be frightening. And people out there who are already letting their kids on devices at a young age, well, you're not doing a great job by allowing that. But COVID, right? During COVID, that was the test run. That was a test run for social distancing. That was a test run for quarantining. It was a test run for staying curfews. It was a test run for lots of things, working from home, and of course, being educated from home, right? And of course, they still tell us, oh, COVID study shows online learning was better in some subjects, right? We saw these kids on their laptops. They told us online learning during COVID saw widespread shift. 70% of U.S. schools moved to remote formats in early 2020. 77% of public schools, 73% of private schools, right? So you say to yourself, okay, well, they showed us this with COVID. This is what we're eventually going to get back to, okay? The way that life was during COVID. It was a test run for the carbon footprint, okay? How do we get to these things? How are we going to allow robots to teach our kids? That's what you have to realize. Because you're just sitting there, you're seeing that, you're like, well, Melania Trump's crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about. No, that's what the future is. Trump's bringing in the data centers for us, for enslavement. Everything you think, say, write, every email, every picture, every time you're recorded on a camera, whether it's a telephone pole or a Walmart, all going into these data centers into your personal profile. You're going to be tracked and monitored 24/7. They're going to be able to locate you at any time. They're going to know everything you think, everything you say, and they're going to use it against you again and not in the court of law. So how do we get there? We get to that via sabotage, which is what you're seeing now. The way people will accept robots teaching their kids, well, it's real simple. You've already been getting trained for it. People like Matt Walsh, the alt-right, right, who get promoted, who go to the White House and the Senate or at presidential speeches, right, all compromised. They're not inviting these people there unless they're in on it, obviously. And what is his big shtick? Well, all this stuff like elementary school holds Pride March, right? The sabotaging of the school system. All these stories you hear about how teachers, instead of teaching, stuff that you learned, which again was all lies anyway, the whole education system should be torn down and shouldn't exist in the first place because they don't teach you anything to help you in the real world. You don't learn any trades in school. All you do is learn lies of history, and you learn it every single year because repetition's the key to mind control, so it gets beaten into your head. And then you leave the school system thinking all this stuff happened during World War II, and all this stuff happened during this, and all that stuff happened there, and we walked on the moon, all of it. And you believe it as reality because it's been told to you so much, you don't even need evidence to have it proven to you. It just gets told to you at a young age because your brain is a sponge, and they beat it into you. Well, now, all you hear about is what? These stories about, well, teachers, while they're teaching those lies, they're also mixing in trans stuff, right? Teachers holding the pride flag. Look at the stories that have been out there. This is sabotage. This is out there deliberately to get parents to want their kids raised by robots because they're saying, I don't want my kid going to some school where the teacher is going to show up wearing a pride flag with blue hair and start talking about their sex life, right? And of course, nobody would want that or should want that. We shouldn't even be talking or debating about accepting this stuff in our reality, right? But that's what we've gotten to. So people are going, I don't want my kid in the school system. What's happened to the school system? Well, school system's always been poisoned. Just nobody's paid attention to the fact that they've been lied to their whole lives. They're paying attention now because of all the sexual stuff they're bringing into school. Rightfully so, because it shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be accepting it. We shouldn't allow a school board to dictate this stuff, nor the government. The people should have risen against this the second it started happening, but they didn't. So instead, they're getting frustrated. They're pulling their hair out, right? Oh, unanimously passing resolutions to encourage LGBTQ education for all schools, right? So conservatives go, I'm not going to let my kid go to a public school where this stuff is. I'm going to have to put them in a Catholic school, a Christian school, some type of school that doesn't have that type of indoctrination, and vice versa, right? Well, Democrat people or Democrats, whatever you call them, say people, humans, I don't know what they are. The way that they think, I mean, they're sheeple, obviously. They don't want their kids going to a school where the teacher's not going to talk about pride and celebrate Pride Month, right? So you get both sides completely divided on what should be taught in school, right? And then again, these are the stories that gaslit. These are the stories that got under people's skin. Seattle Public School celebrates Pride Month. We had, of course, the big one was the drag queens in the classroom, which, of course, then you find out that all these drag queens in a lot of these situations had backgrounds of being pedophiles, having been arrested for, child sex porn, all this type of stuff. Right? Done by design. This is done by design by your government. Because your government actually cared. Of course, this type of insane stuff went out, but your government created these monsters for a reason. And then your government enabled these psychopaths who should be in padded rooms, who are going into schools dressing up as, as you see on the screen, right? Completely unhinged, insane people, right? That's what every human being should be saying. But of course, somehow we have Democrats who are okay with this stuff, okay with people identifying as fire hydrants, instead of just going, look, we're all human here. These people need help. Let's get them help. Okay, this stuff is not normal. Boys shouldn't be going in the women's bathroom, vice versa. These types of people who are dressing in the opposite clothing should not be going into schools talking to young children. But the mind control has worked so much. The government has created these monsters that we've actually allowed it to happen instead of rising up against it. And it's working perfectly for them because the solution, of course, is AI. Right, another story. Florida teacher's employment in jeopardy after using students' preferred name, whatever that means. Public Schools says the state is reviewing the teacher's certification in line with strict anti-LGBT laws. So, of course, your conservative states, how dare you use a pronoun? Democrat states, you better use a pronoun, right? Problems in the school system, this one's probably one of the best. This is recent. Trans kindergarten teacher identifying as a wolf fired after parents raise complaints, right? So you hear the story, you're like, of course the teacher should be fired. But the fact that you're believing these stories, the fact that you're not doing anything about any of this stuff and saying, well, what is making people identify as wolves? What is making people absolutely insane? Well, the media, the government, the stuff they're feeding you about people being born in the wrong body, it's all being fed to you from your government. This is MK Ultra at work, right on every civilian. That's why they call it the American experiment. But instead, what people do is they react to these stories and they go, good, he should have been fired for identifying as a wolf. And the Democrats go, how dare you fire this man for identifying as a wolf? And the fact that we're even having the conversation is what the problem is. We have humans identifying as wolves. I mean, you know, if you walked into the Wild West in the 1700s, you're like, hey, and where are you from? And you're like, I'm a wolf. Ooh. All right, you're getting one right through the eyes. Let's be real. This isn't getting put up with in other time periods, but we're a weakened society. We're a society that's afraid of government, that believes the government, controls us when they're actually supposed to serve us and work for us. So these are all the stories, right? Trans in the library, teachers identifying as wolves. Trump came in and he said, I'm going to shutter the education department. Now, we can again look at that and say, well, that's great because the education department's all lies and stuff, but that's not what he meant. He meant he was going to bring the education department down. He was going to defund it with Elon Musk and Doge so they can bring in AI governance education, right? The new World Economic Forum report shows how AI could transform education. And again, how AI and human teachers can collaborate to transform education. This is what it's about. This is what they've been talking about, what they want. They want AI to raise your children. That way, there's no human interaction. That means if you end up with, say, hypothetically, let's just say in a crazy world that somehow I was teaching at a school, right? I went in, I got qualified, I didn't talk like this. I just said, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'd like to be a teacher. Here's my qualifications. I got hired, right? Well, the guy, they would say, oh, he's a good guy. And then say the door's shut, and I start talking about this stuff. Oh, well, maybe somebody go home and tell their parents and blah, 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 blah. I probably, of course, get fired. But the New World Order, the big brother cannot have any human influence because there's still people out there, even Democrats, who don't agree with some of the stuff that the government's trying to push, right? There's still some individuals who are teachers who might be like, I don't believe in this climate change stuff, or I don't believe in that. They need it all controlled so that every single thing that the child is taught is what they want them to be taught. So human involvement is a problem because some humans might refrain from teaching some of the things the government wants, whether it's the lies, whether it's the propaganda, whether it's the LGBTQ stuff, to sexualizing the classroom. The AI control gives them full control over the curriculum, and of course, it gets children to trust in their tech at a young age. It gets children to trust in the robotics, and then you start talking about transhumanism, the merging of man and machine, which is what this end game is really all about. And then we're talking mark of the beast. But this here is what the World Economic Forum has been playing for a couple of years. So I'm going to play this clip about AI education, AI in the classroom, what they've wanted. And think about this in terms of what we just saw with Melania Trump walking out of the robot, which is just insane that we're even okay with this going on, right? Coming out and then saying how kids will have better lives and how NBC told you robots are here to stay. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, there is something we could do about it. Actually, we could rise against it. We can get EMP weapons and short circuit these things, but none of that will happen because everybody views the human of the opposite political ideology as the enemy and not the technology. But think about that stuff when you watch this clip and then realize that all these stories you've heard that the government is allowed inside the schools where there's guys with criminal records for being predators who are allowed to go into library, all done by design. Your government has done this deliberately to make you not trust the school system, which you shouldn't have trusted from the first place, and to want your kids raised a different way. And you can't raise them, right? Because because they made the economy so bad, they made it so hard to live. Husbands and wives both have to work, which is, again, part of women's empowerment was getting moms out of the household because they didn't want moms raising their kids, which is why they frown upon homemakers. All you hear about is, that's so chauvinistic. Women teaching their kids, women raising their kids, women staying home. They should be allowed to work. Who in the world wants to go to work? You want to go sit in a cubicle all day? Well, they convince you that it's, you being even with a man. There's no more important job than a mother. But they've told you it's the least important job, that it's actually not a job, that it's to be looked down upon. Why? Because the state wants to raise your kids. So that's part of, obviously, women's empowerment, which I've talked about for years, is, women getting sucked into this And then they're going to work, even though the husband makes enough money to support the family. They're both going to work. They're sending their kid to school because they're told that that's normal. And now they're all confused about it because they're like, well, we went to school and everything was fine. No, it wasn't fine when you went to school. You learned nothing but lies. You're buffoons. Because you're both going into the workplace thinking that it's, you want to go brag about what you do and what you make, when your main focus should be raising your kid and keeping away from the poison, the toxins. That is Big Brother. That is the lies of the education system, right? But now, of course, these people who are both going to work, sending their kids to school, are going, well, what are we going to do? We're going to take them out of the schools and we're going to go to the school board meetings and we're going to fight the stuff that they say. And then they're going to sit there and yell and nothing's going to be done. They're going to continue with LGBTQ stuff. And then the parents are going to go, well, maybe we get them in a private school. Well, we can't really afford a private school. Well, I can't quit my job and raise the kid, right? Oh, well, here's your solution, right? Because you're so sick of the school system. Well, why don't you let artificial intelligence raise your kids? And this is what it looks like.
Everybody knows that technology is moving quickly and changing our world at an ever-accelerating pace, but our education system is not.
Learning to learn is probably the most important skill. You need new skills to be successful in school, work, and in life. And so creating a curriculum where students develop a love of learning is number one.
We need to rethink the education system to produce not just students who do rote memorization and answer multiple choice questions, but critical thinkers, problem solvers, students who have creativity, collaboration, and digital skills.
We see right now that around us, the competencies of the children in many countries are declining. What do we need to change? Really put the money in the first years. Research shows us that by the age of 2, already the ground is laid.
Our education system needs to prepare students for a world that is surrounded by technology. Every student should learn computer science because no matter what field you want to go into, there's not a single area you can think of that is not being impacted in some fashion.
We have large amounts of data at our fingertips. So you need to understand how you take data and create views with it to make good decisions. Forecasting, outcomes. It may be finance, it may be projections. There are all kinds of different ways we would be applying large data sets to solving problems. So data analysis is really now a basic skill. Then there are AI skills that you need to start to understand.
AI is not just a technology, it's not something I choose to use or not to use. It will be in every part of our daily life, it will be in every company's life. So we need to be ready to understand it and use it. And to understand AI so far is not part of our formal training we get.
There's now many examples of research that show students learning the same thing with AI and learning it better than learning it without AI. The solution isn't just let the kid do all of their work with AI and just hand in, here's what AI said. You need actually a well-thought-out curriculum, a well-thought-out approach where students try their hand at something without AI and then try it with AI and critique what the AI did and learn from the mistakes of the AI. The beauty of AI is that it can also help teachers create individualized education programs for students. They're doing some of the most important work of raising our children, and they simply don't have enough hours in the day for all the things that the education system expects of them. But with additional training, AI can actually help with that. Reskilling is critical because most of today's workers are not familiar with these things. But when I think about reskilling, what I think about is the 1.5 billion students in our primary and secondary education system. Why don't we give them the important skills while they're in that system today?
Last year, we did a global survey that said 50% of students don't think a career in tech is for them and don't know where to start learning even if they're interested. So at IBM, we have made our Skills Build program available to high school students and college students and adult learners. It's free learning paired with digital credentials. Not everyone has the opportunity to go to formal schooling who is talented and capable and interested. And so we've really looked at skilling and tried to take that forward.
Education and lifelong learning is at the core of the prosperity of countries. We can see from research that 2/3 of the growth difference between countries comes from how skilled is their labor force. So reskilling is actually something that is needed today more than ever. And we can only do that together because only in the companies is the knowledge actually where we need special training.
When it comes to reskilling, there's an important need for collaboration for employers to provide not only funds, but apprenticeships, internships, employment pathways, learning pathways for adults to basically develop the important skills. But education ultimately is the job of the government, and it's important for businesses to weigh much more heavily on governments on the need for education to evolve for the skills, not just the future, but the skills of today.
So, and it starts with stuff like that, AI being allowed in the classroom, being used as a tool in the classroom. Same as you using AI now, right? They start, and oh, don't do a Google search, ask AI. AI will give you faster answers. It'll suck in all the information on the internet and give you one or a couple of correct answers instead of just doing a Google search, right? You've been trained to not trust the search engines anymore because, of course, you can't trust them in the first place. But think about all the training over the last couple of years where, oh, this is what shows up at the top of the search engine. They bury this and they put that, right? Even if you're typing in something about, 9/11 conspiracy or something like that, oh, they're going to put all this other stuff to debunk it first. So everybody goes, this is crap. I'm going to go to DuckDuckGo. And then they go over there. And then it's the same thing, right? And then they're being trained, go to AI. AI will round up the information you're looking for and give you the answer. And it just evolves from there. It evolves into, and then, AI in your house. You can have one of these things walking around your home, right? You already got an Alexa. Why not have one of these walking around? It can vacuum your floor. You don't have time, right? And it's vacuuming the floor. The next thing you know, it's banging your wife. Okay? That's how this whole thing is going to work. It sounds insane, but it's true. It's true. And of course, we have man mixing with machine eventually. That's what the goal is, getting technology like the Neuralink under your skin. But back to the Melania Trump, just seeing Melania Trump walking out with the robot. It's comical. It's embarrassing. Obviously, this is, they called it America the Great. It's America the Gay now. I mean, it's just this technology that we're accepting is ridiculous. People should be caressing, kicking these robots. But of course, there's going to be laws put in place to protect these robots. And as NBC told you, they're not going anywhere. They're here to stay, folks, whether they short circuit or not, whether they kill your kid or not, whether they bang your wife or not. Doesn't matter. They're here to stay. That's what they tell you. Well, who decided they're here to stay? Well, we're telling you they're here to stay because there's no regulation on big tech. Nobody fights against big tech because they love their tech, and they're trained to fight people of the opposite political party. That's how all this mind control works. And the next thing you know, we're accepting this into our day-to-day lives, into our home, and then these things are controlling us, and it turns into Terminator. That's bada bing, bada boom, as they say. That's what we're headed towards. But this is just the normalization of it, because normally when you see a clip like that with Melania Trump walking out with a robot and then telling you that these are going to educate your kids are going to have better lives, they're going to be better people, if they're raised by it, they'll have more time on their hands to play sports. All the parents are going, they're kind of like, 20 years ago, be like, absolutely not, no way, this is ridiculous, I don't trust that thing, it's a machine. Now they're going, and now my kids will have more time, right? They can go play sports, they can be more active, right? And they don't have to worry about my kid getting, raised with some LGBTQ stuff. They'll just get the facts, right? Well, they'll just get they'll just get the lie, really, right? Because all history we're taught is obviously a lie. I believe the opposite. But they're accepting of that now. People are seeing that clip. They're not upset about it. Democrats are, because, of course, they're trained to whatever Trump says to feel the opposite, and then they'll swing. They're still getting trained in accepting the AI and the dating AI. They're more likely to date AI than conservatives are. We know that. Most of these people, are afraid to even have conversations and face-to-face. They'll talk online and run their mouths. And the Democrats, I'm referencing most of them, right? They run, right? They can't even approach a girl. They think it's sexual harassment if somebody hits on them. They complain. I mean, this is the world we live in, folks. And it's all training into accepting this. And now, because of all the stuff we've been trained over the last couple of years with pride in the schools and the stuff we're doing in the schools, people are listening to what Melania Trump's saying and thinking, maybe this is a good resolution, right? But you wouldn't have been thinking that if they weren't training you for it, if they weren't sabotaging. And that's how problem, reaction, solution works. That's the Hegelian dialect that you're seeing at work here. All brought to you by the World Economic Forum. I mean, if you look at AI governance, you look at the stuff with the education system, Donald Trump's bringing it all in. tore down the education system. Everyone went, yeah, because all they're thinking about is the pride stuff and the trans stuff. And they're going, defund the education system. They're bringing drag queens into the libraries. They're not realizing that this is the plan, right? As he's bringing in data centers, not only draining resources. And most people are talking about the data centers because they're concerned about the resources. Rightfully so. Rightfully so about the electricity and the water. But nobody's paying attention to what's going in there. This is where your digital twin is going. This is where everything, and you're going, I don't really care. No, you will care. You will care if, every single movement of yours is stored in there because there's a camera everywhere. That includes the stuff you're saying inside your home. It's being recorded by the NSA and the Alexa's picking up. It's going into these data centers. They need to make these things big enough and large enough and have enough electricity so that they could store every single thing about you 24/7 and use it against you, incriminate you with it. When they start passing hate crime laws, which of course is even as we just saw in Canada, right? They just passed their hate crime bill coming to America soon. Have you noticed the stuff with Israel? It's all part of the plan. Things like anti-Semitism, anybody getting text messages randomly. Do you support Israel? A lot of that stuff going on. Have you heard about that? People getting text messages, just random from random numbers like spam. Do you support Israel? Or, hey, you got a minute? I'd like to ask you about Israel, right? It's a spam, and some, I don't know, people respond to this stuff. But if you do, the response is, well, do you support Israel, or are you not feeling what's going on, what they're doing right now? Of course, if you respond and say you don't feel what's going on, you're going on a list, right? You got to stand with the synagogue of Satan here in Mystery Babylon, folks. So that's what's coming, but wait for AI to get locked in first. And they've been training you for this for a long time, and people are more accepting of it now more than ever, because, of course, of the propaganda and the things the government has allowed to happen in the schools. It's called sabotage. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.